Hey, Tesha.
Hi there.
Hey, good
Hello.
morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Thank you for coming on to the show. I think I was waiting. I think of all the interviews I've done so far, like I can't wait. I couldn't wait for this one. I was like,
I'm excited. I'm excited about what we get ready to do. Just like cooking, I'm excited about what we get ready to come up with.
I'm
So
like,
let's
my girl
go.
Tesha coming. My girl Tesha coming. All
Let's
right.
go.
So, this show is all about cooking.
Yes.
And the goal or the reason why I do it is to give some or provide some tips to people that don't know how to cook, who are just learning how to cook.
Yes.
And so, I'm interviewing some of the best home cooks that I know.
Thank
So
you.
let's go ahead and get started. So I want to know, who taught you how to cook?
Right. So both of my parents cook, right?
Okay.
But because of the work schedules that they had when I was younger, my dad worked at night, my mom worked in the day. So, when they did cook, or when I first learned how to cook, my dad showed me how to fry an egg. Oh my gosh, I don't know how that sentence came out, but we're gonna roll with it. We're gonna roll with it. But because my dad worked nights, he was up during the days with me. So he showed me how to fry an egg when I was 8 years old. Okay. Now I wasn't in the kitchen at 8 years old unsupervised. Okay. But he did show me how to do that. But ultimately, both of my parents taught me how to cook, and I enjoy it. Oh,
so when you say fried egg, are you talking about, you're not talking about scrambled eggs, you're talking about an actual fried egg? Okay.
Correct.
Okay,
correct.
y'all started off advanced.
Yes. It simply just is making sure that your pan is heated with some oil in there. Of course, you're putting the oil in there. It can be cooking spray, whatever your oil of choice is. Making sure that that it's hot, and then you just simply crack your egg. It could be on the side of the pan, and then you just open up the egg in the pan. Now, what I normally do is I break the yolk. I break the yolk. I don't have the patience to wait for the yolk to cook.
Me either.
I just need everything to cook because I'm hungry.
Right.
I can say that I'm hungry, but the truth about it is I'm hungry at that point. Okay. So that is the first thing that I learned, and it was from my dad.
Aww. So you was about 8 years old?
Yes, I was about 8.
When did you start making not necessarily full meals, but like a dinner?
Right. Right. So I started getting more so into that in my late teens, I want to say, because at that point I was able to stay at home. I wasn't necessarily I didn't necessarily have to go to somebody's summer camp. You know what I mean? I was old enough to stay home. I was old enough to operate the stove or whatnot. But of course, I was home and I was watching Martha Stewart's girl, what is up with these words today? Martha Stewart's cooking show and the cooking channel at home. So I would have to say my late teens, because I was seeing her make all these fabulous things and she was presenting them. And I was like, oh my gosh, presentation. So it was simple. Well, I won't say simple, because everything that I looked at on her channel, I was like, I can't even spell half of those ingredients, but but she just made it look so easy. So I was like, let me try to get a little bit deeper into the game. So it had to be around my late teens or so.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you remember, I don't know, cooking a meal for your parents or for the family?
Yes. And I had to think back. I feel like the first kind of meal that I made, we had this what was it? It was some type of meat in the refrigerator that was already kind of cooked. It was just kind of the heat and eat type deal. And I think it was like some sliced ham or so. And I made a little rice to go on the side. I thought I was doing something because I was making it on the stove. But really that was kind of like my first meal. And I would say that would be around that same time or so. And I felt so proud, but my opinion was it didn't come out that great, but that's okay. That's okay. I still cooked it though.
You still cooked it. I know that's right.
Yes.
So, have you taught anybody how to cook? Maybe nieces, nephews, cousins?
There was only one person that I can remember, like, that I've given instructions to, and that person was a family member to one of my classmates from college. They called the classmate and they're like, you know what, we just moved into our house and we're trying to figure out how to cook this. They had like these little we call them quarter steaks from time to time, but they're just really small steaks that you find in the meat aisle. And that was the first time I actually gave someone instructions on how to cook something. And of course, they were still unpacking from moving into a home. So I told them, okay, do you have some pot pans? And they're like, yes. So I was like, okay.
Let's start there.
Yes. Let's start right there. Just get you 2 aluminum pot pans from the store. You can find them at the Dollar Tree or dollar store rather, or the grocery store. Get you 1 pot pan, put your seasonings in there. And some people get a little, well, you know what? I'll say it like this. It can be intimidating when you're learning how to season food.
It is.
Oh my gosh. I'm not ashamed about this. I deal with anxiety for real. But sometimes when I'm cooking for my family, I was like, I hope I don't put too much salt. What if I put too little salt? I don't want my meal sitting at the end of the table and nobody's touching it or whatnot. So, I was getting ready to go into a tangent about seasonings. But either way, let me just kind of bring it in. But that was my first time giving someone instruction. But other than that, I haven't taught any of my nieces or nephews to cook or anything like that. Well, I don't have any nieces or nephews, so I thought about that. But but cousins, when I say nieces or nephews, I'm thinking cousins. But I haven't taught anyone to cook, but I still love to share tidbits even when I'm talking or speaking in conversation.
So I'm glad you brought up seasoning, because that's my next kind of question and what I want to delve into. So what advice would you give somebody when they have that anxiety about seasoning food? Because it's, you watch videos, you see people, they just, and they be like, put a little bit. And I'm thinking, that ain't a little bit. You just put in your little bit and my little bit, 2 different definitions of little bit.
Right.
And so you want your food to come out, good, especially if you're cooking it for somebody else, but then you don't know how much to put on. So what do you do? What tips?
Right. That is a great question. And that is something that I'm still trying to find the answer to. But my solution has been, and my tip is, when you look for recipes, and I like to go to YouTube for recipes. Is it okay if I say channel names? I didn't.
It's fine.
Oh, but I don't want to get anybody in trouble. But I will say this: look for those. I will say use YouTube as a reference, because a lot of the times, those who are putting the videos out there, they may put the recipes in the description box. So they will tell you the exact ingredients that they're putting into the food. Use those recipes. And then as you get more comfortable and you're kind of seeing yourself measure it out and put it into the food, you'll be able to kind of, how we say in the South, you'll be able to eyeball. And then eventually you'll be able to, sprinkle it on there. And that's what's called cooking from the soul. So I would say, look for those resources, and it doesn't just have to be YouTube channels. It can be websites. It can, whatever your source is for recipes. And TikTok is also a great one as well. Look for those recipes in the description box, and then look for those exact measurements. And that, I would say, will help you get a little bit more comfortable and a little bit more acclimated to using whatever seasonings you're comfortable with, because everybody's spice cabinet will look a little bit different.
Right. So you saying start off with the recipe first, And
Yes.
then as you become more comfortable with following the recipe, at some point you'll get comfortable enough that you don't necessarily need to measure it out anymore.
Right.
And you
Yeah.
can just kind of eyeball it. Or as
Yeah.
they say too, what they say, something about your ancestors.
Yeah.
Put it on.
You just
your
cook from the
ancestors
soul.
to
You start,
the top.
yes, you cook from the soul and you sprinkle it on there, and then something in your soul would just say, enough, baby. So that's cook. Yeah, your ancestors will tell you when it's enough. You
I
know,
don't think my ancestors talking to me. I ain't heard nothing yet.
I'm still waiting on that sweet potato pie recipe. I haven't heard it yet. So,
so if I was to call you up and I was like, Tesha, I got some chicken legs, drumsticks. Well, first of all, do you eat chicken drumsticks? Chicken? Do you eat chicken? I don't know if you eat chicken.
girl, let me tell you something. They're in the freezer right now. They're in the freezer right now. I feel like drumsticks, chicken thighs, chicken legs. If you eat chicken or whatever your poultry of your choice, it could be fish. Have that in the freezer. That way you can thaw it out. But short answer is yes.
You eat
yes,
chicken.
I do.
Okay. So if I called you and I said, Tesha, I got some drumsticks. I want to cook them, but what should I put on there? What seasoning should I put on this chicken? Because I want it to be good.
Listen,
What would you
okay,
put on yours?
this is my combo right here. This is like a Street Fighter combo, right, left, up, down, X, Y, left, down. This is my combo right here.
Okay.
Salt, pepper, having a seasoning of my choice, it would be adobo.
Okay.
So adobo can look like many variations in the grocery store. The most common would be like a Goya, it has a red top on it, but some stores may have their own mix,
right.
And it has several seasonings in it. So I said salt, pepper, adobo, garlic powder, onion powder, and those are my combos. Okay. That 5 right there, that's my basic right there. You can't go wrong with those. So and then of course you would want to, I say but but traditionally onions and bell peppers are great to be able to also flavor the food and give it some color, because I like pretty food. I really do. Yeah. So it helps with presentation. And then also lastly, this is my bonus. This is the finishing move. Parsley. I used to think that parsley was just for decoration, but as I've cooked a little bit more over the years, I'm like, garlic and parsley have a thing going on. You know that song, Me and Mrs. Jones, me. Like whoever's meeting at the bar, one is parsley and the other is garlic. Because when they get together, it's a wonderful thing. Yeah, it's a wonderful thing. But those are my go-to. So let me give you the list again.
You got it.
Without my commentary.
Okay.
Salt.
Now let me stop you for a second.
Yep.
Do you cook with table salt, sea salt, kosher salt?
Ooh, yes, that is a great question. So I cook with the regular table salt.
Table salt, okay.
Yes, table salt. And if a recipe calls for kosher salt or pink salt, of course, then I'll use that. But I typically cook with table salt.
So if I don't know how to cook and you're like, okay, put some salt on there, and I'm like, well, okay, I'm just maybe sprinkle. Like how many times should I go back and forth with this salt? I don't know.
Right. So
maybe start off. I don't. That's it. It really is a hard question.
Yes.
Because you don't really exactly know how much if you're not measuring it, right?
Right. This is when I would look up or stay on the phone with you and look up a recipe online. I know cooks.com, and there are so many other websites. Or even if you have like a Google or what is it, an Alexa, or some type of smart speaker, you can normally ask them for recipes as well. But that's the time that I would look up the recipe, for just, let's just say if you're baking this chicken, we're going to look up a classic baked chicken recipe. And if you don't want to do that, because I know how I am, I have attention deficit disorder. When I'm ready to do something, when I'm ready to cook, I don't want to do anything else. I just want to go in. If anything, you just want to go over it with your salt on one side, flip your chicken over, sprinkle it again. And I would say maneuver the salt is if you're trying to do your signature. It's not violently, just very flowy like, you know. But that's what I would recommend. But I will say this. Here's a disclaimer.
Okay.
To get back to the original answer,
we're
gonna look up a recipe, right? But we got our staple ingredients.
Okay, so so I stop you. So let's go back over those. So we got salt, pepper, adobo. What else did you say?
Salt, pepper, adobo, parsley, garlic powder, and onion powder.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I will say this. If you want, you can put on your onion powder and garlic powder first. That would you can be as liberal with that as you need to. But you can see it there as it's coating the chicken. So you want to season the front and the back. Put your adobo on there. Same thing. Go ahead and put a layer of it. Flip your chicken over. Go ahead and put a layer of it. You don't want the whole piece of chicken to be coated in the how do I say this? You don't want it to be over seasoned. Oh, this is such a hard question. I don't want to lead anyone astray. Let me just backpedal just a little bit. We're gonna look up a recipe. I'm gonna give you the ingredients that I just told you, or the seasonings that I gave you, and we're gonna follow the recommendation for the salt, and the adobo if they have adobo in there, and then we're going to apply the garlic powder and onion powder however you want to apply it. You can be as creative as you like. But you don't want to take the top off the bottle and just kind of empty it in. But you just want to kind of put your signature on it, you know, and then flip the chicken over. I just got all the way into the weeds, Christie. So I, you know, do your thing and extract that answer for us if you need to translate. Because girl, my mind just went everywhere. But that is a very tough question to answer, indeed.
So for people who might not, well, again, for people who are new to cooking, so of course your garlic powder and your onion powder doesn't have any salt in it, but your adobo does have salt. So that's why you can put as much as you want to of that in there, because it's not salty, right? I mean, it might be oniony or garlicky, but that's okay, because I'd rather have something garlicky than have something salty.
Correct.
But the adobo has salt in it. So you do have to, so you can't just go crazy with that.
No. And that's something to keep in mind, especially if you're using things from the soup aisle, and because you may even have seasonings there. Maybe you want to make more of an Italian themed chicken recipe, or maybe you just want to be more classic with it. So there are different seasoning packets, and they do have salt in them. But typically, if you are using some type of seasoning mix, such as adobo or Italian seasoning, you want to start off with that first. And then you don't want to go in with the same amount of salt, maybe just a little bit of salt. So maybe like and it's hard to quantify a little bit of salt, maybe a couple of tablespoons. But again, that's where we're going to utilize that recipe for that basic baked chicken to see how much salt they are recommending for that particular recipe. And maybe it's half adobo, you know, look at the salt recommendation for the amount, and maybe split it in half, and you can do that half adobo, half salt. So that may be a suggestion as well. But I think it's good to have that structure of the recipe first, and then kind of move into what you're comfortable with.
Yeah, so in culinary school, we actually, for the most part, we
Mhm,
only use table salt.
mhm,
But we follow a lot of recipes. Now, there are some
mhm.
things that we did not use a recipe for, but
Right.
but once you kind of have cooked something multiple times, again, it just almost becomes like muscle memory. So you kind of
Yeah.
your muscles can almost memorize how, how many shakes you did, you know what I
Yep.
mean?
Yep.
And so it just becomes, yeah, so it just kind of becomes automatic. So I
Right.
think with salt, for me, I just try to maybe start off kind of small. So again, just like lightly
Yes.
coating both sides. And then
Right.
if I, when I eat it and I'm like, oh, I probably could have used a little bit more. So then next time I know, well, maybe I might go back twice. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yes.
We'll
Yes.
see.
No, no, that is a great point, and I'm so glad that you brought that up because
Yeah.
my mom always reminds me it's always better to have to add salt after it's
Mhm.
done than to worry about how to try to kind of take it away, and that's
Right.
almost impossible.
Right.
I'm sure
Exactly.
there is a method of boiling things down and but if we're just starting out, if something was too salty, and I've been there,
Mhm.
I still make meals like that where I'm like, ooh, I went a little overboard there.
Right.
Sometimes I would panic. I'm like, oh my gosh, this trash, or I get discouraged from maybe trying to cook that dish. So you are correct. One of the biggest tips that I can suggest for salt is start off with a little bit. And then, of course, with meat, you're not going to taste raw meat to,
No,
to
yeah, do
see how
not
it
taste raw meat.
tastes.
Do
Do not taste raw meat.
not taste raw meat.
But yeah, start off with a little bit of salt. And once it is done, if should you need to add salt, have it available on the table, just like a restaurant. And you add that sucker right on in there, and it'll still be like one of my favorite YouTubers say, sopped up. Yes.
So do you have a favorite dish that you like to cook or that you think you cook
Ooh,
really well?
yes. Where do I begin? Uh,
Just one,
so
just one.
just one, because we got a long list here. That is a loaded question for me.
Okay.
So I would say one of my favorite dishes to make at this particular moment, and I'm looking that way because I'm looking at my air fryer over here, is air fried tacos. It's the craziest
Wait
thing.
a minute now, I've never
I
heard of
know,
that.
I know. So there again, recipes on YouTube. I just type in air fried tacos, and there is a channel that pops up, and I can't remember the name, but I remember the thumbnail
Mhm,
because it has like the air fried tacos over some yellow rice and like has some lettuce and tomato on the
mhm,
side.
mhm.
But that is my favorite recipe. I followed that exact recipe like maybe like the first two times
Okay.
I made that. And after that, just like we talked about, I was cooking from the soul. I'm gonna brown my hamburger meat and put in, my taco seasoning from the store because I'm not going. I'm not. Let me tell you something. If I don't have to make taco seasoning from scratch, I'm not. There may be others out there who are gifted,
Yeah,
who can do that. Not me.
yeah.
Do not make your life hard. If the grocery store can do it for you, just please use it. Please
Mhm.
use it. But other than that, I whip that up and you can mix it with whatever you need. If you're a little nervous about making rice on the stove, get you a small rice cooker.
Rice cooker.
It'll basically you mix your water in, you mix your rice in, or you
Right.
can use chicken broth with
Yeah.
it. Just
Yeah.
use it for the water measurement.
Right.
Get you a little rice cooker, slide those suckers up with some rice
Yeah.
and some salsa and some sour cream and some cheese.
But
We
wait
have
a
one.
minute.
We
So
have
give
one.
me a quick rundown of how you
Yes.
make air fryer tacos.
Okay. So this is the way you do it. You start off just as if you were making tacos. So
Okay.
you want to get your ground beef, Or oftentimes I actually like to use ground chicken. And of course there's ground turkey, but whatever meat I choose, let's just say it's chicken, right? So I cook my chicken and I'm putting my ingredients in there. I'm still going to put my parsley in there. I'm still going to put my taco seasoning. And of course, if I don't have onions and bell peppers, I'll just use onion powder and garlic powder. And once I fry that up or cook my chicken, I'll put that off to the side. And there are a couple more things that I need to add into that. So it does require adding in some salsa, a little bit of cream cheese, a little bit of sour cream. This is definitely not a dairy-free. It's not a dairy-free recipe, but once I have all of that mixed in and I have a smooth consistency, that just basically means that everything has been blended and I'm not seeing any chunks of cheese or sour cream in there. I'll just put that off to the side. And then I get my favorite tortillas, and I get these from Wally World, and I get them from they have a specific section. It's at the end of the cheese aisle, but there are these tortillas that you can actually put in a pan. You don't need any oil in there, but you just brown them up on each side. And there's a way that I just take a spoon. After I cook them, I cut them in half, right? And then there's a little triangular fold that I do. And really, if somebody is listening to this and they're like, girl, you're talking about cooking tortillas and cutting them in half. Let me tell you something. When you are cooking, take it as you are going into the kitchen with a blank canvas and you are the artist, okay? So these are just the tools that I'm working with. But I'm just simply scooping all the good ingredients that I just fried up in the pan. I'm putting it into the tortilla, folding it up, putting it in the air fryer, letting it cook. And then it just beautifully crisps up, and you can again put it on the side with some of that easy ready-made yellow rice from the grocery store. You can put some shredded lettuce next to it. If you're not a rice fan, you can do black beans. You can choose your side, but that sounds without going into details. That is how I make those air fried tacos, and my boyfriend calls them taco hot pockets. And I'm like, that's not what that is, but if that's what you want for dinner,
that sounds good. I might have to come to you. You know what would be really fun though is if one day we can kind of maybe cook it together. So oh man, that sounds good. I'm gonna look that up.
I promise you. Listen, let me say this, okay? Because I don't have no sense. If you got somebody that you're trying to just impress, be a friend, that boo, that bae, whatever, make that right there. Trust me, it's gonna be a win. It's gonna be a win every time. Air fryer bay tacos. Air fryer bay tacos. There you go. Air fryer bay tacos. That's the way to do it. Yes.
Oh, that's good. That sounds good though.
Yes.
I'm gonna try. Well, thank you so much.
You are so welcome. Thank you so much for having me. Look, whenever you see this, happy whatever day it is. But thank you so much for inviting me.
You're welcome. All right. Talk to you later.
Okay. Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.